Everyone focuses on the spreadsheets. Very few people focus on the story. And if you think about the great company builders, leaders, visionaries, they were master storytellers and they obsessed over that. Everyone should write because everyone has a unique story and every single person has something to say, whether it be for your business or your life or your suffering or your grief or your family.
Welcome to Brick by Brick. My name is Rishi Taparia, co-founder of Garuda Ventures, and my guest today is my dear friend, Tom White. After stints at Sandhill Markets, On Deck, and Google, Tom now writes, edits, researches, and ghostwrites professionally for a number of startup founders, VCs, and Fortune 500 executives. He also advises and consults on Web3, growth, storytelling, and customer psychology for a number of different international startups and funds. He also has a free weekly newsletter on books, behavior, psychology, and philosophy called White Noise. In our conversation today, we cover a wide range of topics, including the importance of storytelling, why writing matters, why everyone should make time to read, and why AI is in fact not going to be as good for creativity as everybody thinks. Let's jump in. Tom, great to have you. Let's jump in.
Awesome to be here. Thanks, Rishi. No rather place I'd be on a Wednesday afternoon.
So Tom, you've previously said it takes one song, one piece of writing, one podcast to change everything for people. That's why everyone should share. One swing of the bat can hit the grand slam that could change your personal and professional life, lead to a good conversation or a partnership or a relationship. It's invigorating. Mm-hmm. Building on that previous quote, why should founders care about content and writing specifically?
Totally. One, I hate the word content, in all honesty, particularly in this day and age. I think it's cheap. I think it's a race to the bottom. I think the written word, and again, this is going to sound so kind of obnoxious, it's more artisanal, it's more personal. Content is phony. And what I've noticed in my work with founders and funders is that in a world of shallowness and superficiality, authenticity rules and phoniness rules. So that's just kind of my first part. So I think people have to think about writing and people have to think about communications because one, a quote from Ben Horowitz comes to mind, right? There's no silver bullet, only a bunch of lead ones. We all get the same 26 letters. We all get, the same combinations of words, at least in the English language. And it's both invigorating and incredibly frustrating that some combination of those words delivered at the right time on the right platform to the right person can not only change the trajectory of your business, but your life in general, right? For example, Software's Eating the World with Andreessen. That is still a canonical essay. Packy McCormick's The Great Internet Game is a canonical, amazing essay. David Perell, Peter Thiel's Religion. Like, one essay can change everything. And the difficult thing about writing is that it's simple, but it's not easy. It's literally putting words on a page and translating neurochemical electrical signals onto the page. But it's hard. It's not fun. It is very, very tedious. It is lonely. And for me, it's usually me just kind of jotting down notes that come at the most inopportune moments, whether it be like working out or in the shower, what have you, and taking all these puzzle pieces and trying to fit them together so that it's a coherent, cohesive narrative. I think everyone has to care about writing and about communication, particularly founders, because the internet's not Field of Dreams. People think they write, they build the perfect app, they build the perfect website, they have the best customer service, people will automatically come to them. That's a lie. If you build it, people won't necessarily come, particularly in a world where I have like 25 unread text messages, 4,000 unread emails, and pings and bings and bongs and dings that are coming from every which direction. That's a full frontal assault on my attention. So for you to say something real, to say it clearly, concisely, and cogently, and comprehensively is, I would argue, it's vital to, it's if that's the bone marrow and revenue is the red blood cells of a business, it's vital to the vitality of the business. Fundamentally, right? Content literally leads to revenue by saying the right thing to the right person at the right time, helping fulfill a need, being a painkiller as opposed to a vitamin, or helping individuals get what they want via you. And I think another thing is people like to go, and share features all the way down. It's not a matter of features. People don't buy features; they buy better versions of themselves and their businesses. And that's a story fundamentally, right? The hero's journey is at the heart of each and every story that is, whether it's a phenomenal novel or a big Hollywood hit. If you nail the hero's journey and think about storytelling and customer psychology and marketing, you're zigging while others are zagging, and taking the road less taken in a information superhighway that is clogged and tired and overwhelmed with a bunch of people, places, things, ideas, is a winning strategy. And I think AI decreases the friction between ideation and execution, but it does not necessarily make the execution better. So that's a lot of different things I kind of threw out there. Um,
No, and look, it
it's
makes total
vital.
sense. And I think that, for founders especially, the idea of bringing themselves and their story and their journey into the product, their why, is, I think, incredibly important, especially as you're getting going, because fundamentally what you are building is, and reflecting into the world, is yourself, because there is no product
100%.
yet. There
Yes.
is no team yet. There are no customers yet. And so, on that point, why do you think more people don't write? And why do more founders not write?
One thing before I get into that, Spec, you said what a founder builds or creates is oftentimes a reflection of him or her. I could not agree with you more. A startup is a tough, difficult, uphill, brutal journey. And I think about when I'm investing, because I dabble in angel investing, like the smallest check sizes, but it's more just kind of like a learning experience, in all honesty, if I'm being completely transparent. But I think about founder problem fit, because a lot of people talk about product market fit. Founder problem fit is absolutely vital, because on the worst of days, what Sean Parker said is correct, right? Founding a startup is like chewing glass, but eventually you like the taste of your own blood. It stinks. It is difficult. It is, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, which is tough for any human, let alone, more resilient ones. Um, so to that end, why don't more people write, particular founders? Pretty simple. They don't have time, right? Time is of the essence. And to write something good, you need to let it marinate. You need to take time. You need to go through multiple drafts and what have you. That's the main thing. And two, it's hard. It stinks. I don't like writing. Like, I hate writing. I love having written. There's nothing better to me than hitting publish, closing my laptop or my phone, and literally letting it go into the ether where it might find someone that it helps or makes laugh or changes or invigorates or fires up or what have you. Because it's hard, it's very, very time intensive, and the easy button that is AI is going to replace that, but it cannot and will not in current manifestations, given neural networks are literally just token matching, right? It's different variables, and it's probabilistic recordings of the most likely, not the best, right? It's the most likely sequential word or phrase or sentence that will follow, not something that is net new or interesting or inspiring or radically different in some way, shape, or form that can actually make someone tick, or impel them to action or what have you, right? So, I mean, a quote I think about a lot is Virginia Woolf, who's obviously exceptional. Like, to call myself like a writer, compared to like Dostoevsky and Virginia Woolf, I feel like a fraud in a lot of ways in that regard, and if I'm being completely honest. But she's like, no one can be as tortured by writing as I am, right? Like, all the best writers hate writing the most. It's not so much a passion as it is, and I feel this, a compulsion. I need this to come into the world. I need to articulate this because it's bothering me, and I don't. And another quote, I think it's Shane Parrish of Farnham Street. It might be Munger. It's like, I don't know what I think until I write. Like, I need to reflect, to take some time, and to get things through multiple kind of sieves and layers of my conscious and subconscious before I can articulate it clearly and concisely. So that's how I think about it. But again, the long kind of meandering route to answer your question, it's hard, it stinks, and it takes so much time if you do it the right way, right? Fundamentally.
Well, and so, let's talk about that for a second. We've talked about the benefits of writing. We've
Yep.
talked about how difficult it is. And when you're a founder, when you're starting anything, hell, even if you're not and you're just trying to carve out time in your day,
Totally.
we don't have a lot of time. And so, and for me, as we've talked about before, I have a love-hate relationship with writing in the same way I think
Oh
you do. And so, how do you build that habit? How do you build that muscle that then creates good writing? Because I think too often it's easy to put by the wayside, oh, it's not that important, it's not that
yeah.
essential. I think we've talked about some of the benefits and what you're leaving behind if you don't communicate and put the written word out there. But how do you advise? You've taught writing a lot to a number of people. How do you advise people start to build that muscle?
Three things come to mind actually. One, it's not that you don't have time, it's just that it's not important enough to you yet, or you don't realize that like everyone should work out, everyone has time to work out, but the disconnect or the gap between the input and the output is often so far gone that people quit or people like don't. Everyone has time. I reject that as an excuse. Work-life balance is fake. Work-life harmony is real, and writing will help you personally and professionally. Change my life personally. I started writing online. Fine, now I'm doing it full time. I started January of 2020. If I knew back then what I know now, I wish I would have done it 10 years before. Before truly. I mean, it changed everything in the best way. For me, that's the first thing. Secondly, this isn't original. You don't have an idea generation problem, you have an idea capture problem. Everyone has gems of insight that literally their mind is producing on autopilot in the subconscious, every way, shape, and form. I write them down. Like that's my only difference. Like for example, and again, like some's analog, some is like this is like some ideas. Again, it's like I'm gonna look like a crazy person, I don't care. But like this is like all different stuff that I've written down in conversation with individuals that I've thought about. And for me, it's a matter of taking them, organizing them, laying them out in front of me when I want to talk about X or Y. And then for me, writing is less going from 0 to 1. It's more taking a puzzle, having the pieces, and trying to put them together so it's a coherent portrait, right? So writing things down. If I don't write it down, it doesn't happen. So I have to write it down, oftentimes in the moment of inspiration. And the whole quote, you don't have to change anything that you got up in the middle of the night to write, or you got out of the shower to write or whatnot, is very, very, very true. Because oftentimes you're total, or when you're running, right? Like you're totally at peace, you're letting ideas flow through you, and you don't have your guard up because you're in polite society or your RAM is focused on something else or what have you. So that's kind of the second thing. The third thing is Morning Pages by Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. There's a great thing from Julian Shapiro where he talks about writing's like a faucet, and morning pages are a way to get all the brown and clogged and dirty and gross water out until you get to the good stuff, right? The tap. It's like warming up at the gym, right? You're not going to go straight into a 500-pound deadlift or like a squat or what have you, right? You're going to do push-ups, you're going to do some calisthenics, you're going to get the blood flowing and then you get to the good stuff where you really eke out and make the gains. So one, I think it's a reflection of people's priorities as opposed to them, quote, not having time. Two, I think it's, again, people don't write things down. They have great ideas. They just don't capture them, and they don't, take the effort to lay them out, organize them, and then think through them because no one has any time these days. And then three, it's morning pages, right? Expect writing every morning. Literally, it could be the same word over and over. It would be sentences from like grammar school, right? When you were chastised, like I will be a good boy or whatever. But getting that stuff out and getting into the flow tricks it tricks your neurochemistry into focusing on one set object or path or what have you, and it gets you into that flow state. I mean, I joke, like when I'm writing, like I'm instinctive, it just flies out of me. But to get into that state, it's not a trigger. I can't flip it on and off. I have to kind of live into that. And oftentimes, like with music, so I'll listen to the same song oftentimes over and over and over again, just right to the BPMs or the rhythm or the lyrics I know. So it's a strange sort of calculus to get into that flow state. But the more that you can trick yourself to get into it and make it easy to you, so you're not looking at a blank page and like a blinking cursor that's mocking you on like a Word document, the better.
Yeah. And so, you touched on AI, right? We live in a world where AI is penetrating everything, and
Yeah.
AI, and I use air quotes intentionally.
Yeah.
The romanticized notion of a writer sitting alone by him or herself in a cottage, the E.B. White classic
Yeah.
picture, seems to be a product of a bygone era.
Yeah.
With AI today, anyone can put out content, to use that C word
Yeah.
again. Is AI a boon or a bust when it comes to writing?
I think we do. I mean, JFK comes to mind, right? We do things not because they're easy, because they're hard. And I think if you gave J.R. Tolkien or Dostoevsky or C.S. Lewis all the tools at our disposal, they couldn't have written anything better. Like, there's no false note. A lot of their stuff in a lot of different ways, like Lord of the Rings or the Brothers Karamazov or what have you. Like, writing is important because it's hard, and it it's almost like the exemplification of everything, right? It's like kind of stolen valor, right? If you create something exceptional and you didn't actually put in the work to do that, that's a hot take, and like not to get into that, but there's this concept of the easy buttons throughout society, and we're always looking for that slow thing, and oftentimes just like doing those, controlling the controllables, keeping the main thing, and just kind of taking one step at a time to get forward, right? To run a marathon, you start with a half mile, then a mile, then three, then 6, then 9, then 12. Like, there's a path. Oftentimes we don't want to do the hard work in order to get that, and I fall victim to that in every which way in my life. My worry about AI is that what Google Maps did for our sense of direction. Like, I know how to get to the store. I know how to get to my parents' house or my friend's house or whatever. I put on Google Maps just as kind of that safety net. What it did for our sense of direction, which is fundamentally and functionally destroyed it, this is going to do for creativity. So is that cultural stagnation when all this data and we run out of data, we're all trained on old things, old ideas, and just an amalgamation of data and soon to be synthetic data. And is that the death of AI, right? Like, garbage in, garbage out. How can you create meaningful data that means something that is not, I don't know, this is, I don't know, maybe idealistic, infused with humanity or infused with soul or authenticity or what have you? It just seems very sterile, very machine like and mechanical in a way that I think is the antithesis of art, of writing, of creativity, and of things of that nature. Right, I mean, AI will replace me. How close it is, I can't, I'm not a technologist, I can't know for sure. But the one thing that it can't take from us is our humanity, right? There's a difference between authentic intelligence and artificial intelligence. I think about this a lot. Authentic intelligence versus artificial intelligence, which is to say, what is the use of something that knows everything and understands nothing, versus a human that knows nothing fundamentally per Socrates, but understands a few things very, very well. I don't know, but I think right now that's all we have, and we should fight for that.
Well, and so, following up on that, if I'm a CEO of a company
Yeah,
and I've got a million things that I have to do, not
yeah,
least of which, build my team, build my product, get customers,
yeah,
writing, as you articulated, can feel like a nice to have, not a must have.
yeah,
And I'm not trying to be Dostoevsky or
yeah,
Virginia Woolf and
totally.
write the next great piece of literature. I'm just trying to get my story out there so people will pay attention to who I am and
Yeah,
what we're building, and justify my existence.
yeah, yeah,
And
totally.
so in that regard, AI can seem like a very an amazing tool
Yeah,
that will help accelerate this production of your words and content that is out there that can tell my story. And so it feels like there is a place for it,
yes.
but maybe it feels like there's a place for it. So how do you incorporate AI into your work, and how do you suggest founders who do want to be authentic, who want to write to think, but also then express their story in the right way, can leverage some of these tools?
I think it's not either or. And I took like a classic, like, I don't know, writers like, oh, like it's all or nothing, which I don't know is a casualty it's the critical thought of like, I don't know, the polarization of everything that we currently live in. I think AI plus humanity is one plus one equals three. They can make one another better. My thing with regards to the CEO just trying to get his or her word out there to quote justify his existence is a good CEO to me is a visionary and a storyteller saying like, hey, what matters, why does it matter, and how can I get the individuals behind me to row together so as to get, maybe not, I don't have a destination in mind, but I do have a direction, so getting them in that way, taking some time to write a great speech, to write a great op-ed, to write a company update, one, not only helps you strategically like clarify your thinking and decision making, but two, it's infinitely scalable conversation, right? Fundamentally, it replaces the need for you to have one-on-ones with anyone and everyone. It doesn't replace the need, I say that, but like Jensen Huang does not do one-on-ones of Nvidia, and Nvidia is a darling in a whole lot of ways, shapes, and forms, and what works for one CEO is not going to work for others. But if you believe that writing is infinitely scalable conversation with anyone, anywhere, at any time, meeting that person where he or she is, or a speech or a TED talk or a book or what have you, not only is it going to help you think through problems and think more clearly and concisely, it is a lasting piece that helps you reflect on where you were and where you potentially want to go. I think AI can help you get there faster. Right? AI for me. This is my analogy that I'm thinking of. You can have a Ferrari with a V8, which is AI, the latest model of AI. You still need some gas, and that's you, the human. And that, I don't know. I mean, certain cars demand certain gas, right? Like an SMP and a Fortune 500 are gonna like, it's like, unleaded versus high octane or what have you. Right? Again, the metaphor kind of falls apart there. You still need the gas. You still need to put it in and pump it, and make sure it's the right gas. Thing can go. So it's not velocity as much as AI increases acceleration, I think. Um, to to quote physics concepts from a terrible physics student.
And so I think that the thing that's hard is finding one's own voice,
Yeah, totally.
and using the process of getting words on the page to identify what sounds like me, what feels like me. This is actually how I think, and not
Yeah,
let the AI tool replace your own voice. And you've got all of these buttons like write in my voice that
yeah, yeah,
work to some degree, but when you read it, it's like that's definitely not
yeah,
Rishi or
totally.
Tom.
Yeah,
And so you were diagnosed with Tourette's at
yeah,
9 years old. And in
correct.
a TED talk you gave a decade ago at Notre Dame, you said, what comes out of my mouth are words that are strange and I do not wish to say them. They are not really my own.
Yeah,
How did you go about finding your voice?
yeah, that's interesting. And like, yeah, the irony is not lost on me. Like someone that does writing and communications that like has ticks and what have you. It's kind of a strange calculus in a lot of ways, shapes, and forms. But live into the answer, so to speak. It's practice, 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 practice. Right? That's what it comes down to. And it's like happiness, right? It's a byproduct. It's not a destination unto itself. If you try to be happy, you're gonna miss that target. If you laugh with a friend, hug your child, kiss your spouse, like those are the things that lead to happiness, not happiness and chasing that itself. That so if you try to focus on finding your voice, like when not doing the hard work of reading, thinking, reflecting, conversing, writing things down, it's not going to happen. It just comes with time. And again, I alluded to this earlier. One of my favorite quotes is Rilke, where he go like, you have to live into the answers. Like sometimes like you might not know what these things are, like unlocked rooms or languages in the foreign tongues. You might not understand the questions themselves, but you know what? It's a matter of living into the answer. Finding your voice, finding happiness is living into the answers fundamentally in every way, shape, and form. If you aim for that, you will surely miss that, just like with happiness. But if you do the things that will lead you there as a byproduct, which is being happy, finding your voice, etc., then you'll get there, right? Like it's just a matter of staying on the straight and the narrow and putting one foot in front of the other as pertains to doing things that are good for you, both as person and as professional, and then slowly you'll get there, right? Again, I think success and happiness and finding your voice, it's not a destination, it's a direction, right? And it's ever evolving. You never get there. Just like perfection, it's an asymptote, but you can get pretty damn close over time. So that's, I don't know, my POV on that front.
And have you instituted any practices for yourself that have helped you, you know, make the Google Maps for Tom?
Yeah, yeah. Life is simple. It's not easy for me. It's faith, family, and friends. That's in that order. It's a foundation of everything. Being a good person, treating others the way I would like to be treated. Life is very simple. We tend to overcomplicate it with baubles and shining things and things that glitter are not necessarily gold. And I get caught in the rat race just like anyone. But happiness for me is sitting around like a table with my brother and my parents, cousins, friends, and like laughing, like having a cold beer or Guinness or whatever, and just like back decking we call it, and just like chilling and laughing and riffing, and it's very simple. But we distract ourselves with these things. It's like Fight Club, right? We work jobs we hate to make money, to buy things we don't want, to impress people we don't like, right? Like, and I fall victim to it. Everyone falls victim to it. It's the human condition for someone that's ambitious and wants to be successful and what have you. But you don't need any of that to be happy. You just need a roof over your head, your heart beating, and food on your table, and people around you that love you and care for you for who you are. Right? Like that's it. And I try to keep that top of mind, and I fail so often, like all of us do. But that's my nirvana. That's my happiness, and I don't need much other than that. I don't want the accolades. I don't want. I mean, I'm a ghostwriter, right? Like, I don't like have my name on a lot of things that like a lot of individuals put out there. I think it's an interesting exercise in ego, humility, and it kills imposter syndrome to think that the people that you think know things and run the world like have no idea. Everyone's making it up as they go along. We're all just scared kids, which is a fascinating, eye-opening experience when you look up to your heroes and people that are setting economic policy or writing laws. It's really interesting that no one has any idea, and to be human is to know that you yourself have no idea, but to assume that others do for some reason, which is, I don't know, it's Dunning Kruger in a nutshell in that regard. So I know nothing, and that guy and that girl doesn't know anything either.
Well, and so on that point of being a ghostwriter, you write on behalf of a number of founders, execs, fund managers. What steps do you take to successfully emulate someone else's voice?
Yeah, it's hard. The more time, more conversation I can have with them to pick up like their turn of phrase and their words and like their mannerisms and ticks and what have you, the better that I often am able to take their words, past things they've written. Like, I try to write or read most of what they in the form, the medium that they want me to write in, medium, whether it be like a speech or a TED talk or an op-ed or a newsletter. Like, those are, give me a template, give me an archetype that is, something that I can have that is concrete towards which I can aim. Let me spend time with you. Like, oftentimes listening, it's like listening, literally being on a phone call, having the person talk through what they're thinking about or what they want the topics to be or what have you. And my job is to take that, record that with that person's consent, take the recording, stare at it for a couple hours, separate the wheat from the chaff, and try to be as true as possible to that person's words and phrase and what he or she is saying, while simultaneously making sure that we satisfy the intent, which is the thesis of the piece, the end state, which is what you want someone to do or what you want them to take away or how you want them to feel after reading something, and then the ICP, like who's the ideal reader for this thing. You give me those three things, some time with you, and something that you've written that you're particularly proud of, I can kind of triangulate what it needs to be, the adjectives to use, what we want to make people feel and what have you. um I wish there was a shortcut. I wish I could like take all the stuff, give it a chat GPT. It's like, hey, like write in this person's voice. I've tried candidly, and it's awful. It's not remotely close. It's sterile, banal, subdued, come to mind. And it's just not human, right? It's that authentic piece that I keep coming back to, like being you, being true and being you. It's the whole idea of Perel's personal monopoly. It's like the Dilbert comic guy. He's like, hey, I'm not the best businessman, and I'm not the best artist, but if I have cartoons that are satirical about I don't know the misery of a lot of office workers, that in and of itself is going to set me apart. And he's one of one, and you want to be one of one in that regard. So I don't know. It's very trite and it's often overused, but it's like it's Oscar Wilde. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken.
A lot of times, to your point on ICP,
Yeah.
people feel like they have to write for everybody.
No
And
way.
founders, especially, I have to write for my employees, and I have to write for my investors, and I have to write for
Yeah.
my customers. How important is finding that person? I think Buffett talks about he writes his annual letters for his sister, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And
Dear Aunt Kathy are the last
dear,
words he changes to all shareholders.
right.
One of my favorite archetypes. Like, oh, Buffett's pretty successful, and Buffett's a pretty good writer. So I think it's a pretty good example to write for one particular person.
And so how do you not write for everyone and end up selecting
Yeah.
the person and or archetype that you are in fact trying to write for? How do you prioritize? How should a writer and a founder prioritize that individual?
The beautiful thing is that like you get infinite shots on goal, right? So like you don't like it's not like one piece that has to satisfy everyone. Like you can write something that to a prospective employee, write something for potential investor, write something for a potential customer, what have you. And once you've done the hard work of laying out those blocks, those building blocks, oftentimes it's the same blocks presented in a different way and structured in a different way that will lead you into the different answers and the different things that are important to an investor or an employee or a customer or a partner or what have you. So it's a matter of doing the hard work and getting all the puzzle pieces in front of you. Once you've done it once for like a customer, it's like, hey, a customer is going to care more about revenue uplift, and a potential employee is going to care more about like, hey, what's the culture and what's my opportunity to advance at this company and grow with this team that I have, right? So that's what you have to do. It's like this is going to be a ridiculous analogy, but I think an analogy. So like sourdough, how you have a starter. I'm not a baker. I was talking to my friend about this the other day. It's like you have the starter. Once you have the starter is the hardest part, getting that thing going. Once you have the starter, you can bake the bread at any given time because it like kind of I don't know the chemistry like regenerates or regrows or what have you. But if you have the starter, you can make all sorts of different like loaves and bread and I don't know and rolls and what have you. You need to do the hard work to get the starter for your writing so that it can be baked into the different things that are going to satisfy different people fundamentally.
Pressing publish is one of the hardest things to do,
Yeah.
and for some reason there's a distinction that we draw in our minds of hitting publish and pushing something onto the internet and
Yeah.
hitting send on an email, but in effect they're the same thing. You
Yeah.
are putting out your words into the world for anybody to see.
Yeah.
How do you help people get over that fear of publishing? And to your earlier comment, the idea that you get multiple shots on goal, I think so often we fixate on,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to be out there. And if I sound foolish, if I sound silly, then people are going to think less of me. So I'm not even going to hit publish at all.
I think one, because people care about you and are paying attention to you a lot less than you think, right? That's number one. Number two, who cares? Like, if you're, I mean, again, it goes back to you caring about the wrong things. If you one, like, one, who gives a damn? Honestly, like, there are infinite shots on goal. Two, it doesn't matter why there's this chasm between publish and like it. I think it's a fundamentally wrong. We think we live in this panopticon where other individuals are constantly judging us and nitpicking and what have you. Happiness is caring that you're being the best person you can be and not looking to your left and right and comparing. Like, comparison is the theft of joy. Life is golf, it's not tennis or like another sport. Like, you play in the course, you're not playing one another, right? Like, and if you have a good round, I could shoot an 100 and be thrilled. You could shoot a 78 and be thrilled, and then our friend could shoot an 87 and be like ecstatic, right? We're playing different games fundamentally, we're on the same course, but we're playing different games, we different handicaps and things and what have you. But I really don't. I was in sales, especially for the early part of my career. So like maybe is worse than a no. And if you don't hit publish, you will always have that maybe. If you hit publish, at least you'll have a no, right? And a no is a two-letter word. Like I don't care about rejection. I've been rejected so many times in my life, jobs, friends, relationships, whatever. Like you become numb to it, and it's a silly thing to be held back by anticipatory anxiety about something that is a future that might not occur and oftentimes will not occur because you're overthinking things because that's the human condition, right? I mean, again, a quote, again, I think in quotes and analogies, a quote comes to mind. I think it's Twain. I've had thousands of crises in my life and some actually happened. That's what it is, right? Like, who cares? Who cares? I mean, I'm sending my newsletter out to a couple thousand individuals. If they disagree or it's like, oh man, that was a really poor turn of phrase, or oh man, he used the improper adverb there. Oh, like he's an idiot. Good, I learned something if I'm an idiot. Like I love being wrong. Like if I'm dumb as a rock and you call me that, okay, that's input for me to reflect on my base rates and my priors and become a better version of myself. Sweet. The only reason why I hit publish, the only reason why I started writing publicly was because I'm bad at being accountable to myself. I'm very good at being accountable to others. The weight of other people's expectations and whatnot was a forcing function for me to write consistently because the last thing I want to do is write. Would love to chill, like watch Netflix or go to the beach or what have you. That's what it was for me. And it has, again, changed my life in so many. I have access to people and have had conversations with individuals that I have no business talking to. And it's just like such a refreshing thing. It's like, hey, you thought my words were worthwhile, that I put care and diligence and attention. You're willing to give me the time. Like we're willing to have a conversation, become a friend, etc. It's awesome. Everyone should write because everyone has a unique story and every single person has something to say, whether it be for your business or your life or your suffering or your grief or your family. I mean, I cannot overstate it enough. Fear of some potential future. If we fear every potential future there is, we wouldn't cross the street because we get hit by a bus. It's, life is risk. And the more you risk, the more you reward. Prudently, of course, but you have to risk. You have to push the chips in and go all in every time and again in life, particularly when you have the odds. And you're only going to know when you have the odds that you've taken shots on goal and something's in your favor.
On that point, you mentioned getting the feedback, getting the no is actually valuable because it helps you get better.
Yeah.
I have found, and I know we've talked about this before, so often you hit publish and it's like you're shouting into the void. There is no response. There is no reaction. There's no feedback loop that you can then close to improve. And so, maybe switching topics from creation now to distribution.
Yeah.
Just like startups, too often people think, oh, if I write it, they will read it.
Yes.
How obviously that's not true, particularly given so many draws on our attention. Yep. How do you guide people around the distribution aspect of writing in order to get that feedback loop and that feedback mechanism working?
I think I'd read like 200 something newsletters, and I'm pretty consistent in reading them, giving feedbacks. I know what it's like to write into the abyss, and it's a very ugly, even if it's just like, let's go, really enjoyed this, thank you. To hear something, I've been on the receiving end of it, it's like, oh wow, like someone's out there. I'm not screaming into a well and hearing my own echo, right? Like that's what it comes down to. I think I'm pretty decent at it. It waxes and wanes with busyness and what have you. But again, business isn't an excuse for what I had said earlier. So you can always make time to say thanks or let's go or great job or whatever. So given that, I've developed a lot of relationships with different writers and newsletter creators and authors and ghostwriters and what have you. And people are always looking for something that writers are always looking for an excuse to not write. So if you give them something that is good, that is coherent, and that aligns with their audience or what they do, you are doing them a tremendous favor. And they have to write like an intro blurb, outro blurb. You're golden, right? So for me, it's about being authentic, reading other people's stuff, reflecting on that stuff, developing a relationship on that. And now I have kind of access to podcasts and to newsletters and to other writers. And audience cross pollination is the best possible thing. It's why, you know, JP Morgan collaborates with Formula One, and why, like the, I don't know, crypto.com like sponsored the Miami Heat's arena and what have you, right? Like cross pollination of different audiences is wonderful. That comes through partnerships, and partnerships come through authenticity and trust. That comes from actually knowing that, hey, Rishi writes about XYZ, and Jim writes about ABC, and knowing to introduce people. I mean, I joke based what I do is as like writer and as in like investor and like advisor to a bunch, like I'm just an expensive switchboard operator connecting people, places, ideas, and things at the right time. That's what it comes down to. And there's a quote, I actually pulled it up because I'm writing something to this effect. A word spoken in season at the right moment is the mother of ages. That's by Thomas Carlyle. So again, which is to say, the right word at the right time to the right person can light things on fire, but you'll never know. It's a matter of testing and iterating and putting things out there. Again, it's Ben Horowitz. There are no silver bullets, only a bunch of lead ones. Picasso painted 30,000, 40,000 paintings in his lifetime. Quality is directly correlated with the quantity and the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into something. If you are able to do that and do it consistently and well, you have a higher likelihood of painting a Mona Lisa or painting a Guernica or what have you that people remember you for. It doesn't matter that he's painted, like say 39,950 paintings that no one knows about. He painted Guernica, right? Like he painted the guitar players. He had his blue phase or whatever. Like that's all that matters. People don't remember when you're wrong. They remember when you're right and when you made a prediction or you made a bold claim that zigged when others zagged, and you're remembered for it, right? Fundamentally. To go back to Buffett, in 2008 or 2009, he wrote that op-ed, like, I'm buying American and you should too, about like how he's loading up on American equities. Pretty damn good play. And he's remembered for that because it was bold, it was different, and it was truly folksy, authentic Buffett, as opposed to, the sky is falling or, hey, like why I'm getting out there. And if you're wrong, no one will remember. And if someone derides you for it, it's just the reflection on them more than it is of you or anything of that nature.
You've seen, and we've talked about this, the engagement pods, people who will like and or share and or comment to let the algorithm do its work and get that distribution as well. So if I'm a founder and I'm starting to write, I'm getting started on my writing journey, and I want to get the right people to see it, to read it, to react to it. Can I manufacture some of that? And how would you suggest getting, again, just starting that flywheel slowly? Of course, send it to people who can edit, comment, and who are naturally going to read it to give you that feedback. But to get the broader distribution to the person whom you don't even know, but might be the exact right buyer for your software or have that exact problem that you're articulating and offer great feedback to, what should I do?
I mean, let's do think through this example right now, right? Like you and I have a lot of different people and like outlets that we can push. You'll push it on your newsletter. I'll push it on my newsletter. We'll push it on YouTube. Tweet about it on LinkedIn, or tweet about it on LinkedIn. That's ironic. Tweet about it on Twitter. Post on LinkedIn. We'll like and comment one another. I've referenced like Peter Thiel. I've referenced Packy, who's a friend, like David, who's a friend, and what have you. Like I will like send this to them, and even if they don't like post it or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like, hey, like I thought of you. I referenced something I think is really, really good that you've written or you've wrote. You might have a look if the spirit compels you to move it, or the spirit moves you to post it or what have you. Amazing. Or including a link or send it to someone who shares. Doing so in an authentic way is a lot better than people that only hit you up when they want you to like something or comment or share. We haven't had a conversation in 2 years. Like I haven't sat down with you. Like you're literally just sending me a tweet or a thing to like, and I don't have a big audience. I have like, I don't know, a couple thousand individuals across all my stuff, maybe 10,000 tops. It's just making it authentic as opposed to transactional is everything. And doing so in a way that is real as opposed to, you can tell when there's like kind of a like bomb or like a comment bomb that's going on, that individuals are manufacturing this idea. The tough thing is that trying to do that and do that consistently is one, like algorithms change all the time, and that's why like I think Substack is important because you are the master of your own destiny in that you own your audience, you could bring it everywhere, and inboxes and phone numbers seldom change, so that's kind of an important thing on that front. Secondly, yeah, if you live by the algorithm, you're gonna die by the algorithm. And I don't know, BuzzFeed comes to mind, right? Like when Facebook changed their video algorithm, it was DOA, and that company, I think Vivek Ramaswamy actually bought like a stake in them or something, but they're not the darling they were 10 years ago, or what have you, because they manufactured everything to that algorithmic state. They weren't true and authentic, and they did things in service of a moving target. And to do that is trying to hit a moving target with a broken arrow, right? That's my kind of modus operandi in that front.
Yep. So, we've talked about writing, the importance of writing,
Yeah.
the act of creation, some of the distribution. If a founder just can't find the time
Yep.
and is but wants to dedicate some space to getting the word out there, getting the story out there,
Yes.
ghostwriters such as yourself come to mind. What's the right time for someone to bring on a ghostwriter?
It varies depending on what people want. It's tough because there's a spec. Like the beauty and the curse of what I do is that there's no one size fits all approach. I wish it was like a widget where I could manufacture and send it off. Some individuals want higher level advisory, like kind of like in conciliary, off which to polish their words, their phrases. Like they're the knife and I'm the sharpener, making their words cut more crisply. Other individuals want soup to nuts, idea generation, publication, dissemination, and kind of a content engine I can spin up. So there's no one size fits all approach that leads to the right time to reach out. I'm willing to talk with anyone. I mean, one, I'm an extrovert, and two, I'm Irish American, so like I don't shut up. I love like talking to people and engaging and what have you. If you're thinking about it, like I'm more than happy to have a conversation with whomever. The time, I don't know. I would say the time is right when you know you need to, but you've been neglecting it for too long. And there's that voice in your head, either personally, or like, "Hey, I have to write about X, or I have to spin up Y, but I just haven't made the time to be able to do that, or whatnot." That's when it comes to mind. And the idea of not having time. A favorite hack of mine is literally going for a walk, putting on Otter or and like I'll like just like talk my ideas out, or I'll have a conversation with a friend. It's like, hey, I want to riff with you on XYZ. I'm gonna record this. This is okay, and then we could take this conversation, and then I want to write about it if that's all right with you. Like that's an easy hack. Everyone goes for walks. Everyone picks up the phone and calls friends. You can kill more birds with fewer stones by doing those things. It's about making space and layering those opportunities and those activities so that they are done in concert, and you're just kind of amplifying the leverage that you already have as a human being with the same 24 hours that everyone gets as the world goes around the sun.
Yep. We've talked about how writing is thinking. Obviously, reading is thinking. You're an
Yes.
incredibly well-read individual. Your books, your favorites proudly displayed on your website.
Yeah.
How does reading in particular influence your writing?
I mean, reading is everything. I'm an omnivoracious reader. My major in undergrad was PLS. It was called the Program Liberal Studies, um, aka the $200,000 book club, because we read so much. So we were, regularly reading like 1,500 pages of like classical, heavy tomes of theology and philosophy and what have you. So I love it. For me, a quote comes to mind is Sebastian Junger. Is like, if you have writer's block, you don't have enough ammunition. And I don't remember. There's another quote, Emerson, I think. He goes something. I don't remember what I've eaten or what I've read, but yet both these things have made me. And that is so true. Like you don't have to remember it. It's not a matter of like having didactic memory or whatever. It's a matter of just letting the words soak into you, particularly of good books. and using those words and learning. And I don't know, they'll the right book will change you if you let it, and if you kind of sit with it. And I think that's an unfortunate casualty of dopamine culture. It's like long articles and things that are on our phones or whatnot, like just sitting with a book. Like I don't do the Kindle thing. Like I annotate all the books, that even like fiction books. If I see an awesome turn of phrase, like, oh, it'd be so sweet to use or to incorporate in whatever. So I'm like, um, so with regards to reading, one, like if you're underthinking, read. If you're overthinking, write. And then as it pertains to there's nothing original in the world, right? Like nothing is new under the sun. So again, Picasso, what he said, which is awesome. And I'll sometimes do this, like good artists copy, great artists steal. If there's like an incredible analogy that I think fits into my discussion that is totally unrelated to what the author is talking about, I'll like take that and I will use that in my writing. I mean, if you think about it, Lion King, Toy Story, Pixar, like those are direct rips on Shakespeare. Like Othello. I mean, every single Pixar film that I grew up on is directly taken from one of Shakespeare's plays. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of turtles all the way down in that regard. But reading is a joy. And my grandfather, who was my hero, um, he was 90 when he died, and he was learning Latin and calculus. Clark was like, "Yeah." I was like, "What are you doing, Pop? Why don't you chill?" I was like, "Oh, it's just so interesting. Like, look at this stuff. This is sweet." Um, so that is imbued in me a lifelong love of learning. And as he said, an education is the lightest burden you'll ever carry. And I, carry that with me. And I really enjoy reading, just because I don't know anything. And it's interesting to learn from individuals that have spent a lot more time, energy, blood, sweat, and tears on things that I don't have the faintest idea about.
You worked with Sriram Krishnan on the Observer Effect, and interviewed a bunch of great tech leaders and thinkers. Mark Andreessen, one of them himself being a prolific reader, and he talks about this concept of content that's Lindy safe.
Yes.
With so much arguably low quality content out there, how do you keep your content stream, what you're reading, Lindy safe?
Yeah. I mean, for me, if you want new ideas, read old books. That's what it comes down. My reading system is simple, dead simple. I'll read a work of fiction that's kind of like a relaxing, easy, get through it, don't think too much. A work of nonfiction, which is a bit more like robust. And this is my version of crawl, walk, run. Uh, Maybe takeaways, maybe like time management, maybe, I don't know, like the story, like Shoe Dog or something by Phil Knight or something, like some nonfiction book or memoir that I can learn something from, and the fiction you can learn from as well, but obviously it's different. Then I'll read a classic like Anna Karenina or Dostoevsky or Dickens or whatever. Like my next book after the one I'm reading right now, which is a work of fiction, is Voltaire, right? Candide by Voltaire. Like something that has stood the test of time, that has shaped ideas and minds and cultures. And the reason it's still here means there's something of value, and has had over the hundreds if not thousands of years that it's been in print. So for me, that's my rotation. I try to read deep, but I also try to be wide as well by covering different verticals. I hate that term, but like different kind of genres and ideas, so that I don't fall into the trap of only reading breezy airport reads, which are super enjoyable and I love them. But it's like junk food, right? Like you get filled for 20 minutes, and then a week later you can't even name the characters or like remember the plot. Whereas I can talk at death about like Odysseus and the sirens and the Cyclops and all that stuff. And I last time I read the Odyssey was, God, I think like freshman year of college, which is embarrassing, but yeah, it's still stuck with me.
Yeah. Tyler Cowan has this concept of view quick books, books that shake you to your very core. Any quick books that you've read recently?
Book by Annie Jacobson called Nuclear War, a
Nuclear
Scenario.
War.
Unreal.
Yeah.
We as human beings, one, are oftentimes not oftentimes, we're the masters of our own destiny in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms. And we inevitably like just kind of turn the ship right towards the rocks and the worst waves and what have you. That book woke me up to how close at any given time we are to ending it all, and how little power we have as individuals to influence anything or everything to that front. That book, I mean, I read that in like a day. It was just, it read like a thriller and a work of fiction, but it was extensively researched and it's based upon her interviews on the topic. But that book just, so I literally, after that I went on Amazon and I picked up I bought like three more books that she wrote. If they're as good as that one and as extensively researched and as well written, she could fall into a category of like a writer that I'll read anything that that person puts out. Another one is like Patrick Radden Keefe, who wrote Empire of Pain about the Sackler family and Say Nothing. And these are contemporary writers, right? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
Dostoevsky, anything he put out, it's like gold, right? And James Joyce, same thing. Like, it's unfair to sit here and call myself a writer when you have it's like me, like I play basketball, yeah, so does Michael Jordan, and
Sure.
like we don't belong in the same room, let alone the same court, right? So it's hard in that regard, but that's an exception. I'm reading right now The Demon of Unrest. It's a book by Eric Larson, who wrote Devil in the White City, and then the other one,
The
what was
Splendid and the Vile as well.
yeah, about Churchill before the war.
Yep.
This is about Lincoln's election
Yes.
and the days before. It is particularly what's going on now in
Yep.
American. One, it's reassuring in that, like, hey, American history has been close to the brink and has teetered along there pretty regularly. But also it's discouraging in that, this period of super difficult times and unrest led to civil war, right? And I don't think we're there yet. Had the events of this weekend gone differently, I think that we'd be having a very different conversation, if we're even having a conversation, candidly. But that's another one that is, I don't know, if you don't remember history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I think this is literally case in point of what, like 170 something years ago, where we're pretty damn close, and we're not careful, we might come there again. So that's earth shattering in that it's very educational as it pertains to the crises of America that are uniquely American because of the way that we set up democracy in our society.
Last question from me for the aspiring writers out there. Sometimes you got the best thing is to write, but if you're going to read about writing, any book recommendations on how to write, what to write, style, prose, practice, anything like that?
A lot. Stephen King's on writing is exceptional. There's a book, Kill Your Darlings, which is a collection of advice from this writing teacher. I forget his name, which is embarrassing. Draft Number 4 by John McPhee is an exceptional writer. Um, probably the best one. I read this book every year. Is Nobody Wants to Read Your Shit by Stephen Pressfield. I recommend that to everyone. I reread it every year, and it's just such no BS, simple, velvet hammer advice. It's like, hey, like no one, and I would say this to like founders, and like no one wants to read your shit, so don't produce shit. Like, read things that you're proud of, and if you're going to put your name on it, whether it be a company or a product, so too with writing your content, be proud of it. Right. And a lot of people use it as an afterthought as opposed to the thing. Like, business is simple. It's not easy. It's spreadsheets and storytelling. Everyone focuses on the spreadsheets. Very few people focus on the story. And if you think about the great company builders, leaders, visionaries, they were master storytellers and they obsessed over that. Uber and Lyft, for example. Lyft and they're fundamentally the same company. They provide cheap, commoditized transportation from point A to point B. I think the reason why Uber is so much larger in terms of market capitalization, product offering, is the story that was attached to it. Like, everyone's black cab, right? Like, that is incredibly easy to remember. It's like Stripe, right? Like, increase the GDP of the internet. Um, Google, organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, right? Like, those things are both comprehensive and concise, and they allow for a clear direction, whether you're an investor or an employee or a potential customer or what have you. It's like, oh, I know what that does, and that sticks with you. And a slogan, just do it, Nike, right? Like, a slogan sticks with you, and that's what it comes down to. So the frustrating thing about writing is that the input and the output are not correlated. It could be literally something that comes to you in, I don't know, over drinks at a bar, and it could change everything, like 3 words, a slogan or whatever. And you could tire over the perfect manifesto or customer letter or whatever, and it doesn't do anything. So just put things out there. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah, it's a matter of living into the answers per okay. That's what it comes down to.
Tom, amazing conversation. Thank you so much for your time today. For anybody who's interested in Tom's work, and you definitely should check it out. Check out the show notes, and all of his links are available online. Thank you so much, my friend.
Appreciate it, Rishi.